um, Letitia James is busted again, right? It says just
Ish.
Tish ish, Tishy. So on Truth Social, Trump, wait, let me pause for a second. I need everybody to hit the like button. That's what I need to say.
Tish the
I,
Terrible.
yeah. Oh, that's a good one. All right. So, oh, and then I also have the goal. I have a super chat goal. I would like to reach it. Yeah. So send in donations as well if you have a question or a comment. All right. So, Tr- Trump on Truth Social posted a sick and horrible woman who happens to be grossly incompetent. Well, what did she do, right? What she did, it says it's an article by Roger Stone. I'm about to pull it up. Where is it? Okay, right here. It says, when it comes to sickle cell therapy, Letitia James believes Black lives don't matter. Shame on you, Letitia. So here's the thing. The New York Attorney General Letitia James was alerted of a conspiracy to suppress life-saving pharmaceutical drugs in 2019, but chose to ignore credible whistleblower warnings in favor of building her own lawfare case against Donald Trump. Whistleblower Patrick Grandi, what is this? Has been fighting for decades on a cure for beta thalassemia, a disease negatively affecting
Thalassemia.
thalassemia,
Thalassemia. Yeah, okay.
a disease negatively affecting the production of hemoglobin in the afflicted after the disease was discovered in his 2-year-old son, Rocco. Garandi was an early investor in gene therapy upon coming up with a treatment for beta thalassemia as well as sickle cell anemia, a similar disease that is prevalent among Black people. James looked the other way after she was presented with the evidence by Garandi preferring to use her references to build a bogus case against President Trump instead of using her authority to clamp down on corporate corruption that is keeping life-saving drugs out of the hands of Black people across New York.
Translation, maybe she thought going after Trump would camouflage and obscure her own wrongdoing of a similar nature. Actually, he's innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But so far, the case against her is stronger than it was against Trump.
Right.
And I don't think the Trump situation is going to stand long once it goes through the appellate process.
Right. Because so basically what this person is saying here is, I presented you, Attorney General in the state of New York, with evidence, right, that this pharmaceutical company, took what I created and, basically did something unlawful. I have the evidence. I have the proof. Can you take a look at it? Can you investigate?
Yeah, well, that's I don't know where that would go, but you and I both looked at the appellate process with Tish in her case against Donald Trump relative to his supposedly defrauding a bank that said it was not defrauded. And you remember how the state justices just jumped all over her representative like she was a clown. And they haven't delivered their ruling on it, but I suspect they're going to kick that case. So her little claim to fame is I got all of this wrongdoing proved against Trump is going nowhere because they're going to show it did not comply with American law.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, this so-called thing, he's been convicted of 34 felony counts. Well, the judge didn't properly charge the jury, so that's not going to stay long either on appeal. So they'll wind up with nothing against Trump be like the cook who got mad and threw a pot of spaghetti on the wall and hoped some stuck, but it'll all slide off. So it's a wasted effort, a lot of taxpayers' money, and it obfuscated the real criminal activity, which seems to lie with the prosecutorial authorities and
So,
perhaps a certain court.
well, let me just I didn't want to go through the whole backstory, but I'm gonna read the last two paragraphs here to sum up um, this man was talking about, the backstory. So it says, Durandi describes the corporate CEOs who he has dealt with as a criminal insider traders. His tale is all too familiar in an era of corporate capture of regulatory firms. Countless Byzantine regulations mandated by the federal government serve as a legal labyrinth to trifle to stifle and
Stifle.
stifle innovation, crush the individual, and maximize big pharma's profit margins, with the court system offering little recourse for those victimized. Quote, as a whole, the pharmaceutical industry is a criminal organization. Why do you think everyone wants to have transgenders? Well, because the poor people have to do hormones that cost anywhere between 3,500 to 10,000 per month. Big Pharma is pushing that. Um, I should have sent you this article
I
earlier.
think they're in error. See, they're falling for propaganda too. It's not really big pharma. They get scant profits from what they spend. It's the pharmaceutical insurance. It's not the pharmaceutical, it's the medical insurance industry, which is also invested heavily in the production of generic drugs. When you do generic drugs, you have to have basically 2/3 to 3/4 of the same formula that the legend drug has. And it often requires a doctor to prescribe additional pharmaceuticals, generic, to make up for the deficiencies. So the medical insurance company gets a lot of money from the production of generic drugs that they're heavily invested in. That's not classically big pharma, but big pharma doesn't make great profits from what they have to put in place to develop the drugs.
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm going to quickly do the background story on this. Durandi's quest began after his son Rocco was diagnosed with beta thalassemia and not expected to live past age 14. Presently, Rocco is forced to get blood transfusions every 18 days and take 10 pills each day to prevent toxic iron from building up in his blood and organs, as potential cure is suppressed from him and the public. After his son's diagnosis, Durandi became an unlikely pioneer in a controversial field of gene therapy, which was looked at as science fiction in 1990s and early 2000s. Durandi made stunning progress in the field, and he eventually caught the eyes of the corporate giants as he hoped to mainstream his work. He was locked into a long legal battle with the gene therapy firm Bluebird Bio and the Sloan Kettering Institute, SKI, the research facility connected to a renowned cancer treatment center. Durandi's firm, San Rocco Therapeutics, alleged in court documents that they were coerced by SKI into divulging details on a potentially groundbreaking treatment. Durandi gave an important vector to SKI in 2010 under false pretenses, believing that it would help move the treatment forward to clinic trials. The SKI then buried his treatment in favor of Bluebird Bio's more expensive treatment. Durandi believes the problems began in 2010 when a new president and CEO of Sloan Kettering with financial conflict of interest rose to the position. Dr. Greg B. Thompson served as the president and CEO of Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center from 2010 to 2022. Dr. Thompson has deep ties with Third Rock Ventures, the venture capital fund responsible for financing Bluebird. Court proceedings have repeatedly vindicated Grenandi, who was cynically discredited and painted as insane by corporate insiders. Bluebird admitted in November 2010 presentation that one of the positives of partnering SKI is the deal eliminates the most threatening competitor. Another email disclosed to the public talked about the need to shut down. Greed is the obvious factor behind suppressing this treatment. Bluebird Bio was able to raise the treatment price to 3.1 million per patient from 75K to 80K offered by Gerondi's firm. Because Gerondi's therapy was suppressed, they are able to rack in countless more billions worth of profit for their shareholders at the direct expense of patients who are squeezed and forced to suffer and die if they cannot bear the immense costs.
Translation: somebody particularly motivated by the plight of a family member decided to get involved. He too fell for the propaganda, and he believes that Big Pharma is the cause of his son's plight and the economic circumstance, when actually it's the medical insurance company that would have to pay this out, and has managed to get things characterized such that they would maximize their profits for the smallest amount of payout.
But
So here we are, and he wanted Letitia James, who probably has no clue as to what this is all about, to get involved. And it's probably beyond her staff of administrative lawyers and government employees to figure out. You don't need a law degree to figure this out.
Bring in Letitia James' failure not to prosecute anybody. She didn't even investigate it. She didn't even look at it because she didn't do it because her focus was on the Trump.
I got it. So that's obvious. That's obvious. But I'm talking about the bigger issue here of how the American public's got fraud run on it generally. See, you have a pharmaceutical company that's got to invest billions of dollars in research to come up with the drug. They've got to invest billions of dollars in field trials, and also a lot of money in covering themselves with insurance, liability insurance. Meanwhile, the the medical insurance industry refuses to authorize payouts for prescribing these drugs. So the physicians can't prescribe the drug. The pharmaceutical industries don't make the money back that they put into developing the drugs. The patients suffer from the lack of advanced medical care, and the pharmaceutical industry is blamed. Meanwhile, the medical insurance companies make enormous profits because monies that could be paid directly on behalf of the patient are paid to them. And the patient, on top of that loss, has to pay the copay, which is very much out of line often. So
okay, but this has
the
nothing
only
to do
people
with
that gain are the
right
medical
now.
insurance companies. Farmer loses, the patient loses, the physician loses.
All right, so let me swing back to Letitia James, because it says here in 2009, I go to Letitia James. I say, hey, you got criminals over here. I got all of the proof. Here's all the proof. Please, they're costing the lives of sickle cell disease patients. You got to go after them. I am having so many meetings with Letitia James' office. They keep telling me they don't have resources. The neediest Black lives are sickle cell disease patients. You want to forget about going after, because you want to go after Trump. Let's go after these bad guys. Letitia James was so enamored with her political agenda, believing that she would be the one who bring down Donald J. Trump and build her career from that. Unfortunately, her ambitious James attacks on Trump were so overreaching, low IQ, and reserved that they alerted many more people to the scope of lawfare being pursued against Trump, only enhancing his credibility among the electorate and leading to his political comeback in 2024. So,
and she's factually too ignorant and unsophisticated to understand what's going on with the medical industry anyway. So she'd rather concentrate on the more politically expedient matter that's backfiring on her, because to a great extent she understood, because she was doing it herself. What
True.
better way to prosecute somebody than to prosecute them for a crime you personally are committing, because you know all the ins and outs and you can accuse them of doing what you're doing?
Right. So the moral of the story is here, right? In conclusion, she had an opportunity to crusade for the little guy and help black people. You're a black woman, right? And you're talking about running for office, governor. That's a great campaign. I am for the people, which is your job as attorney general. But you disregarded the little guys just to go after that big fish or shark, and you got eaten up because he was.
She's not pro-black. She's using the black vote
She's
to
not even
get
using
in.
the black vote anymore.
Listen,
She's using the gay vote.
she was using the black bloc vote to get in office so she can handle business for her real posse, which is the rainbow cult.
She has never spoken out against police brutality,
That's
homeless.
not your problem.
No, 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 no. I'm saying she has not mentioned anything black ever, but she has mentioned LGBTQ and illegals.
That's what I said, with 78% of the vote to 22% of the vote. People win elections by 51.8% of the vote versus 48.9% of the vote. It's small percentages. Everybody under the current voting circumstances in the state of New York, California, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Ohio that gets a 13% of the vote is going to have a hell of a chance to win. Now, Letitia James is Attorney General for the state of New York. She's a black female or Negro female. Now, her point is she doesn't give a damn about the Negroes or the black folk or the African Americans that live there, because she's part of the rainbow cult. She is a staunch supporter of the rainbow cult. That's the problem with why our cities have gone to hell, is they're controlled by the Democratic Party, who does not give a damn about them. They just want their votes, and their votes control the outcomes of elections, particularly ones that are close. Once they get in, they don't deliver anything to the black voter. They deliver it to the rainbow cult. And that's what she did. She was determined to get Donald Trump in a trick bag so he wouldn't be able to derail the rainbow cult's agenda. And she thought she had it. She did it in a fashion that would be very much subject to her expertise that she possessed, because she was the one that was actually guilty of doing the same things she was accusing Donald Trump of doing. Or at least that's the way it's turning out to appear. Now, that's what you have. It doesn't make, see, this isn't where you have an electoral college count situation. This is where you have 13% of a state's population, which would be reflective in the juvenile population, the child population, and in the adult population. If 13% of the state is black, that means 13% of the adult population that can vote is likely to be black. There is likely to be a sufficient turnout of black folk on the levels that it is customarily to be found, and that does influence American politics greatly. You get 10 to 13% on your side in any statewide election, and you've got a good chance of winning, particularly if everybody else is divided. There are places where the people in power did not rely upon a black majority to get in. They had a large white minority But when they put it with a consistent black bloc vote, they could always win. That's what has happened a lot, particularly over the last 50 to 60 years in politics as it impugns the South, the Southeast, and the big cities in America where there are high conglomerations of black people, or in certain states like New York, where the percentage of the state, 13%, is higher than it usually is in your typical state. In other words, if you get the black bloc vote anywhere, however small it is, you have a good opportunity to control your state's politics.